Hey, Steve Stine from Guitar Zoom here. Thank you so much for joining me. In this video, we're going to be talking about 6th string bar chords and 6th string power chords since they're so closely related. So the first thing we need to do to understand the bar chord is to realize that bar chords are simply open chords that we're moving up and down the guitar. Okay? So if you think about it, if we took just the plain old E major chord here, okay? And we might know some open chords like E and D and A and G and whatever it might be, right? But what we want to do is we want to move the guitar this way. So if you think about it, what we could do is take the E chord and move it up 1 fret. And if we wanted to do that, of course, then what we would do is we would use a capo to raise the strings that I'm not pressing on, right? All of those open strings. And now that E chord would become another chord, a new chord. We can hear the pitch has moved up. And if I want to move up again, I would move that capo up. And I could keep doing that all the way up the guitar. Well, instead of using the capo, what we can do is use our built-in capo, which is our first finger, as the capo. So if we go back to this E chord, for instance, okay, and let's recreate that E chord using these 3 fingers instead, okay? So it's still the same E chord, we're just using 3 different fingers. Instead of using these fingers, we're using these fingers. And what that enables us to do then is to simply move up 1 fret higher, and then we can use our built-in capo, which is our first finger, to create the bar chord, okay? So all a bar chord is an open chord that's being moved up and down the guitar, but we're using our built-in capo, which is our first finger. So in order to know the names of all of these bar chords, you need to memorize the notes on the 6th string. And I'll make sure and put a link in the description for you so you can memorize those notes if you don't already know those. But E, moved up 1 fret, would be F. Okay? Now for a guitar player, it still looks like E, it's just not in the right position. It's not down here. It's now here, and we can hear the difference between the two. So as a guitar player, this is how you make an F chord on the guitar. Okay? Now the beauty of this is that this keeps going. If we move up again, we get F sharp. And if we move up again, we get G. And if we move up again, we get G sharp or A flat, whatever you want to call it. And again, if you know the notes on the 6th string, you're using your first finger to determine the name of the chord, and then you're using your other fingers to determine the quality. And let me explain that. If we go back to the E chord here, this is an E major chord. So this is F major, F sharp major, G major, G sharp major, A major, and so on across the fretboard. So the first finger, if I put it here on the 6th string and I bar across there, it's F major, F sharp major, G major. And the reason it's nice to know that is because if I go back to this E chord here and I take the middle finger off, listen to what happens. All of a sudden that E major chord sounds like E minor, right? If you know your open chords. So if I move up to F here, that's F major, but if I take that middle finger off, now the chord is F minor, or F sharp minor, okay? So the first finger is telling you what the name is going to be on the 6th string here, right? E, F, F sharp, G, and so on. So if we want C sharp minor, again, we're going to find C sharp, we're going to bar over that, we're going to make the E major chord, and then take the middle finger off. Okay? Now, when I'm teaching bar chords to people, I always tell them to make the chord major first, and then take the middle finger off to make it minor. Why? Because oftentimes when people first start learning these, if I say something like, make G minor, okay, they'll go to G, and then what they'll do is accidentally take these 2 fingers and put them here right next to that bar, and it'll sound terrible. It needs to have a space because that's where the middle finger would normally go. So if you're not used to doing these, a great thing to do is to start off by making the chord major first, then take the middle finger off to make it minor. So G minor would be right here. G major would be here. And the only thing we're doing is taking the E major and the E minor chords and moving them up and down the guitar. That's the way the bar chord works. Now, some questions people might have are, for instance, well, if a song asks for a G chord, right? Do we play this G or do we play this G? Because we have a couple of options now, and the answer is that you can play it any way you want, okay, whatever's comfortable for you. Maybe you determine what chords are coming before and what chords are coming afterward to maybe determine which one you'd want. For instance, if you're going from G to D, maybe open chords is just fine. But if you're going from G to F sharp minor, maybe it'd be easier to go from this G to this F sharp minor because you're already in that shape. But that's entirely up to you. And the second question people have about these are, well, why are we moving the E chord up and down the guitar? Why aren't we moving the A or the D or the C or things like that? And the answer is, you can move those. You can move any open chord you want up and down the guitar. The thing you have to understand about that, though, is you're not creating anything new by doing that. You're just creating a different place to do the same thing, right? Again, if you think of G being here and G being here, we're not creating anything new by doing that. We're just creating two different places to play the same thing. So what's beautiful about learning this E major and E minor chord system that's moving up and down the guitar is if we think about the notes that we have in music, we only have 12 notes. We have E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, and so on. Again, G sharp or A flat, whatever you want to call it. And when we get to the 12th fret, it's E all over again. It's the octave. So if we learn how to play this one chord, E, moving it up as a bar, we have now learned all 12 major chords. And then get up there where it's kind of hard to play up here, but we've learned all 12 chords, all 12 major chords. If we take that middle finger off, we've learned all 12 minor chords. You see? So you'd already, with that much knowledge, you'd already know how to play all your major chords and all your minor chords, okay? Now, granted, when you get up here, it's a little bit hard to play, so you might want another option at some point of being able to play it in another position on the guitar, which is great, and we'll talk about that. I've got another video that discusses fifth string bar chords that you should check out, and that'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. So hopefully that answers your question. Now, let's go into power chords for people that like to play power chords. Now, a bar chord and a power chord are the same thing. A bar chord, you play the entire system, so you get this major or minor sound when you're playing. A power chord doesn't want to be major or minor. So what happens is if I take this E shape that I'm moving around here, the power chord would only want to be the top 3 strings. It wouldn't want this string because that's the string that makes it sound major or minor. So when we play a power chord, we don't need to bar across all 6 strings because we don't want to play them anyway. All we want are the top 3 strings. And then these bottom 3 strings, what I tell people to do is use the index finger to sort of deaden them. Instead of pressing on that string, just kind of touch it, and those strings will have this kind of deadened sound. So when you strum, you're only going to hear those top 3 strings. And that way, if you learn how to deaden out the strings you don't want, you don't have to be so careful when you strum. You can, kind of open up your strum a little bit and still only hear the strings that you want, because the other strings will be deadened out with your finger, okay? And to make that even easier, if we think about this power chord with 3 notes, 3 strings, if we actually look at that, the 6th string and the 4th string are actually octaves of each other. So if this note right here is G, which it is, so is this one. Which means that a lot of players don't even use 3 fingers or 3 strings when they play power chords. They just play 2 strings. And again, it's entirely up to you. It's a little bit about sound and it's a lot more about feel. When you play these power chords, when you see a power chord written, it'll be written as like A5 or D5 or G5. It'll always be written, whatever the name of the note is, and then 5. And the reason is because you're playing the root and the 5th of the scale. That's what it is. So when you play all 3 of these fingers, you're playing a root, a 5th, and a root again. So for some people, it's redundant. You don't really need that other root in there. For some people, they really like the sound of it. Sometimes I play all 3 fingers. Sometimes I only play 2. It just depends. But if I was looking at, notation of some sort or something, or, if somebody showed me how to play something, at the end of the day, it still comes down to whether or not I want to play it with 2 fingers or 3 fingers, because it really doesn't make any difference. What might make a difference is maybe what's coming afterward or what was coming before. That sort of thing might make a difference. But just understand that when you're playing this power chord, it's really up to you to decide overall whether you want to play it with 2 fingers or 3 fingers. The beauty is it still has the same names as the bar chords that you just learned. So if you want to play a G major, it's here. If you want to learn G minor, it's right there. If you want to play a G power chord, it's still right there. Okay? So that's how you play 6-string bar chords, all coming from the E chord, the E major, and the E minor. And then, of course, we can convert that into a power chord. So hopefully that helps you. Take care, stay positive, keep practicing. If you're looking for any guitar materials, head over to guitarzoom.com and check out what we have to offer. So I'll talk to you soon.